Hi, this is the final video in a set of 3 involving the replacement of bearings in a Hotpoint WF range washing machine. In the first video we removed the container. In the second we removed and refitted the bearings, and in this video we shall be replacing the container in the cabinet. This little bush sits on the rear peg of the motor and must be replaced when refitting. It's far easier to refit the motor while you have the container out like this than it is when it's in the cabinet, because it's easier to slot the motor in from the top rather than hold it up from underneath. Once it's in place, refit and tighten both bolts, but remember to fit the washers first. All the components shown in this and our other videos are available online at our website. Make sure the plastic bushes that hold the springs are still in the cabinet and container, otherwise the springs will just wear them away and make a horrible noise while it does so. Both springs are the same, but one fits into the container facing one way and the other faces the opposite direction. This is so that the top hook on either spring faces outward. At this point the container doesn't weigh very much, even with the motor attached, but make sure the springs are upright so the hooks are at the top. This way it will be easy to slot them into their respective recesses. The spring retainers just push in and lock into place. Before refitting the pegs that hold the stabiliser legs in place, check them for wear, and if you find any then replace them. The one on the left, as you can see, is worn and will come out after a short time. Check that the pivot hole in the stabiliser leg is in line with the hole in the container before inserting the peg, otherwise you may damage the peg. Push it in as far as you can by hand and then hit it with the end of a hammer handle or a piece of wood until it's fully in. The legs are not like suspension units, they don't contain springs or hydraulic fluid. As you can see, they're just 2 separate units, one inside the other. Hook the front weight on the location points on the bottom of the container, then fit and tighten the 3 bolts. If possible, try to locate them in their original threads and don't over tighten them or you could strip the thread. If you use a drill to screw the bolts in like I have, be sure to give them a few final tweaks with a spanner just to make sure they won't drop out. If you remove the metal shims, then replace them before you fit the top weight, and as with the lower one, fit the bolts in their original thread, but don't over tighten them. Fold the dispenser over and attach the drum inlet hose onto the container. Refit the retaining band and tighten it. Hook the front panel onto the nylon latches and make sure you haven't caught any wires in it. Replace the screws that hold the panel on, starting with the ones at the top and then the 2 underneath. Stay down there and refit the kick panel, which will just push on once you have it the right way up. If you remove the wiring plug from the door switch at the beginning of the operation, then replace it now and hook the lip on the edge of the switch into the opening in the cabinet panel. Then once it's in correctly, you can fit the screws. Feed the seal around the front panel so it's even before you start fitting it. That way it won't go on wonky. If you run a small amount of washing up liquid between your fingers, then slide the retaining wire through it. This will lubricate the wire and allow it to fit easily. Reconnect the PCB and refit the fascia panel. If you have a PCB or module with a number of connections on it, you'd be advised to check with your previously made notes or photos as to where the wire connections fit, and be careful not to leave any off, because some have a tendency to fall inside the cabinet and get missed. The soap dispenser on these machines has a lip that fits inside the opening on the fascia panel, so make sure it's seated properly before replacing the screws, or it may go on wonky. Fit the drawer, and that's the front done. On this model, the socket on the motor contains one extra vacant position, and it's possible to put the plug in wrongly, so check that the wires on the plug all fit on the terminals in the socket. Now connect the earth wire. The drum insert in the sump fits onto these two lugs in the casing, and the filter assembly locates into that. The ball float in the filter is there to restrict powder from entering the pressure chamber, so make sure the sump hose is on properly before tightening the Jubilee clip. As long as the earth wire to the heater, the green and yellow one, fits on the terminal attached to the bolt, the other two wires with spade terminals on can fit either of the outside terminals on the element. The thermistor plug only fits one way in the housing, and this one is held in place by a little spring tab. Don't forget to resight the pressure hose in the two clips on the container, or you may get a tapping noise later on as the pipe hits against the cabinet when it spins. The belt on this machine was worn, so I'm replacing it. You may wish to replace the belt with the container out. It would be far easier, but I'm fitting it with the drum in place. Although I have fitted the container back to front just to show how easy it is to fit a stretchy belt. Loop the belt over the main pulley and put two cable ties around them to hold them together. Unhook one side of the belt from the pulley and wrap the lower section over the motor pulley. Rotate the drum anti-clockwise as you look at it from the front of the machine, and the belt will be drawn onto the main pulley. When it gets to the cable ties, they'll just break off. All you need to do now is align the belt with the motor pulley. Replace the inspection plate and refit the screws. Replace the top and the machine's ready to be water tested. On behalf of Selfix UK, we hope this series of videos were of help to you and you managed to sort out your appliance. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.